Welcome back to the special business meeting. We are now on item 4.1, which is a staff report regarding the cricket pitch funding adjustment. I will turn it over to staff to introduce themselves and run us through the presentation. Thank you.
Through the chair, good afternoon, council. My name is Jay Deo, Director of Recreation and Culture. I'm joined by my colleague, Tim McBride, Project Manager in Facilities and Construction. Online, we have our project consultant, Blair Arbuthnot from Binney Civil Engineering Consultants. We're here today to present recommendations around funding for the cricket pitch project at Brennan Park Centennial Fields. I'll send it over to Blair to provide a brief overview on his role and experience in relation to the project.
Testing. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Through the chair, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Blair Arbuthnot with Binney, Senior Project Manager and Landscape Architect for the project in which we've been brought on board by the district. We've been involved in the project for a little over a year in terms of supporting staff in developing the feasibility study and subsequent detailed design drawings for the construction of a cricket pitch at Brennan Park North Quadrant. I'm happy to be involved in the project, and as a part of our role, we worked with staff in developing some feasibility site fit assessments, in which ultimately was resolved to be best placed at Brennan Park at the north side in conjunction with input from staff and user groups. Through the detailed design process, we were able to navigate through some existing conditions and develop a construction plan that minimizes impact to all users, including soccer at Brennan Park. And associated with the detailed design plans, we are able to put forward our cost estimate with our 2025-2026 costing as it relates to a competitive bid process for construction at Brennan Park. Welcome any thoughts and comments on it.
I just wanted to check, is the presentation showing?
We are not seeing a presentation.
Okay. Just 1 second here while we...
Ooh. I feel like we're heading in the right direction. We can see there. We see your notes, though. Do you want to probably go back to the presentation?
There we go.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you. Today, staff are recommending the council amend the 2026 to 2035 financial plan to increase the cricket pitch project budget by $98,000 for a total 2026 budget of $140,000, $79,500 funded by the community amenity contributions and $18,500 by external funds received from the Squamish Cricket Club. We also recommend the council receive $18,500 in funding from the Squamish Cricket Club to be used towards a cricket pitch and bring forward this change to the 2026 to 2035 financial plan spring amendment. In 2023, the Squamish Cricket Club brought forth a formal proposal for a permanent pitch and training area reflecting the growing demand for the sport in the community. The proposed infrastructure additions would allow Squamish to host provincial level play and support the growth of the sport. Council subsequently approved the funding for the cricket pitch through the 2024 to 2028 financial plan, with partial contributions earmarked from the club to support the advancement of the project. In 2024, staff presented the results of a feasibility study recommending that Brennan Park was the most suitable location for the installation of one pitch. Council approved the installation of one pitch between soccer fields 3 and 4 at Centennial Field. At this time, council also approved the approach for capital funding contributions and an annual operating budget increase to support costs related to operating the pitch. In 2025, council approved an additional $15,000 to support anticipated project complexities. As the project has matured, additional capital costs have been identified, which are now being brought to council for consideration in order to determine project direction. I'll pass it over to my colleague, Tim.
As the project has progressed through the feasibility and design stage, several assumptions have been revisited and has resulted in cost increases. The initial contributions from the club were based on securing grant funding for 2 cricket pitches, including in-kind donations. As planning progressed, it was found through the feasibility study that only one pitch was recommended, and the original funding contributions were based on 2 pitches, which has reduced the grant funding availability. Additionally, staff assessed the situation and determined that receiving in-kind donations has a high construction and maintenance risk to co-located fields, including complexities with receiving the specific in-kind contributions. During the initial estimate, costs were also estimated on the assumption that staff would conduct part of the work, for example, concrete pouring, based on practices of other municipalities. As the district does not have the capacity or expertise to conduct this work, the updated estimate also reflects increased costs for contracting this work out. Additionally, turf remediation for the existing sports field following construction was not originally accounted for in the estimate and has contributed as a major cost driver. Through the continued planning, staff have confirmed that the current budget is no longer sufficient and additional funding is required to deliver the project. Despite the cost increase, the project still offers strong long-term value to the community, and significant work has been completed to bring the design to a construction-ready stage. Alternative options to reduce the cost or relocate the project have been explored, but no financial or logistically viable solution have been identified without cancelling or significantly delaying the project. The club has also indicated that it does not have the capacity to fundraise the financial gap. If the additional funding is approved, staff anticipate completing construction by August of 2026, subject to a suitable weather window. Staff anticipate construction could potentially impact some user groups, and in these situations, staff will work with the affected parties to find alternative accommodations. In summary, staff recommend that Council amend the 26-2035 financial plan to increase the cricket pitch project budget by $98,000 for a total 2026 budget of $140,000. $79,500 funded by community amenity contributions and $18,500 by external fundraising funds received from the cricket club. Staff also recommend that receiving the $18,500 in funding from the Squamish Cricket Club to be used towards the cricket pitch and bring this forward to the 2026-2035 financial spring amendment. And with that, thanks for listening, and we will open it to questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Council, questions? Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much, staff. Thanks for the work on this. I'd like to understand more clearly what makes up this $162,000 budget. That seems like a significant amount of money to me. So could you provide the detailed breakdown of how we get to $162,000, please?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. I can start. So part of the increased budget is an increased staff contingency for construction costs. And then I'll pass it over to our consultant Blair, who can speak more to the estimate and the cost escalations.
Thank you. Through the chair, would you like a detailed breakdown in terms of line by line or general works?
Line by line.
Sure, no problem. So we've broken down the costing into 6 general topics, which includes general mobilization, site preparation, drainage, irrigation, paving, and soft landscaping. So within those sections, we have further breakdowns that would be applicable. It's a small area work. And so from a general perspective, mobilization, demobilization, hoarding that would protect the site during construction was $5,000. Site preparation in terms of excavating and stripping and removing and disposing the grass and organics, both for the cricket wicket area as well as the regrading to meet the existing soccer fields, was budgeted for just under $12,000. Drainage, which includes reconstruction of any subsurface drainage that's currently in the field, if it's required. We don't know until we break ground, so we've allocated a budget of $5,000. Irrigation, there's current irrigation and services within the field area. So again, we don't know until we break ground and the exact location and depth of existing services. So we've budgeted an adjustment of existing irrigation for about 7,500. Paving, so the wicket is built on a concrete pad, and so that concrete work was budgeted for 22,500. And then lastly, in soft landscaping, which is the restoration of the area, putting new turf in where it was disturbed, was budgeted for 39,150. So for a total pre-construct contingency value of 91,000, and the additional 15% for contingency and tax brings you to the total budget.
We can come back around to you if you want to do some math on it, but you're welcome to ask a follow-up.
Yeah, just follow up. That total was 91,000 plus 15%.
15% contingency. Yeah.
15. Okay.
Yeah.
50%. 50% contingency. Okay. Thank you. Let's ponder that for a minute.
Absolutely. Council, other additional questions? I have some of my own. I don't see no other hands. Thank you. I really appreciate the work here. In trying to understand sort of the overall impact of this, I see efforts talking about sort of maintenance pieces, and in the locations it was talking about coexisting in our like field allocation policy, like that type of work. Is there some other impact that we're not considering here that to make sure that this works? And like, does this, the time where this is used, does it come from other user groups? How do we address that over time? Like it feels to be like we were sort of talking about this in the report, but didn't really get right at that. Is that, how is staff taking that into consideration in this work, or is there a next step here?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So in our report brought to council in October 2024, we spoke about how the construction of this capital infrastructure would not change allocation. Allocation would have to continue to be followed based on our current allocation policy. As you know, council approved an update to the allocation policy. So we'll look at opportunities for efficiency for field use for users such as cricket in the future, but there'll be no change in allocation based on this new infrastructure if it moves through.
And with that, based on that, there will be a reasonable availability of this. I'm just trying to understand like what we're accomplishing with this, based with that, with the impact of our current policy as it relates to this new piece of infrastructure. Like, are we achieving a usable number of days per year that this can be used? I'm trying to justify the investment. So I'm trying to link these things in. And have we looked at that, or what does that look like? Or can we assume that we've got comfort that there'll be a reasonable amount of availability for this use if we make this investment?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. The allocation we can't really speak to until we update the policy and say if there'll be changes to it. The idea is to increase efficiency on the fields, because we know there's opportunities for that for fields that may be unused or not used efficiently. So there's opportunity. Really, the investment is the original rationale for it was to support league play, to allow them to participate in competitive play, which permanent pitch is required, and to support the sport users and having better infrastructure to have better quality matches. So whether or not it'll lead to increased usage, we can't speak to until we update the allocation policy.
Okay, I'll ponder that. Councillor Stoner, I saw your hand. I'll come back around to you, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, just a few questions. We did do a feasibility study for this work back in 2024. And so I'm just curious, how does this differ from what we had in 2024?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. Can you just clarify which part you're wondering is a difference.
Yeah, I guess like level of detail for the feasibility assessment, like what was delivered for the 2024 feasibility assessment that allowed us to put, with what I felt like was confidence at the time, a budget number for implementation in 2025? And how does that differ from what we have here today?
Through the chair, I can answer part of that question. I can pass it on to colleagues if necessary. So the location has not changed. The recommendation in the feasibility study was primarily focused on where to site the cricket pitch, and that was the recommendation from the consultant is what council supported, staff and council supported. So that is what we've developed our detailed design around. What's changed is the funding contributions, understanding of the funding contributions, as well as the project budget, as well as we've gone through project maturation. So I don't know if Tim or Blair want to add to that.
Thanks for the question through the chair. With regards to the project budget, the initial feasibility budget was based on assumptions that were high level. As more detailed planning's gone in, these assumptions have been adjusted to be more realistic, which is one of the major cost drivers. And the other aspect is elements that were not considered, such as turf remediation, have added significant costs to the budget, which were not in the feasibility study at the time.
Okay, that's helpful identification, the difference in scope there. My other question is just what has happened to the $28,000 that we allocated for service level operating budget starting in 2026? That was adopted in the spring 2025 amendment, I believe. But I'm just curious what happens with that 28,000 and if we can reallocate. I hear that there isn't staff capacity to implement this project, but we have put additional service level in the operating budget to do this project. And so I'm just trying to square where that lands.
Through the chair, I can start by answering this question. So because the pitch has not been constructed, there has been no cost contributed towards operational costs. So that budget has not been used. I don't know, finances or anything I'm missing there?
Thank you for the question through the chair. I believe the service level change was an ongoing for maintenance, et cetera, of the cricket pitch. If the cricket pitch doesn't go ahead, then we could certainly make an amendment or put it through the 2027. Well, amendment for 2026 be too late now, but the 2027 financial plan, we would adjust for it and would reduce that operating budget. Then in terms of 2026, it will go into general operating surplus as a salary variance.
But if it's something that we have already taxed for, can we take that 28,000 and apply it to the cost increase here?
Through the chair, it's an operating versus a capital implementation. So slightly different animals there, which would be challenging at this point.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Greenlaw, who hasn't spoken yet, and I'll come back to you once we're done a round of folks that haven't spoken yet. Actually, sorry. Councillor Pettingill first, then Councillor Greenlaw.
Thanks. Yeah, two things. Are we able to schedule our work on the field allocation policy so we can ensure there is sort of usable hours before we start spending on construction?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. The timing is not aligned with the construction timeline. So the field allocation policy will not be completed by the time that we have the construction timeline completion of this project, which is August 2026. So we'd have to delay this project significantly if you wanted to wait until the outcome of that to determine whether or not there would be more allocation for cricket. Yeah.
So there's a chance then that we could build the field, but then find there's sort of no workable hours for it?
Through the chair, the intent of the allocation policy is an update and not to there still be usable time for cricket users. There's no intent to remove existing time from sport users. unless there's efficiencies that are found or inefficiencies that are found to remove that time. So it's hard to speculate on it, but the intent is we would flag that as a risk if we thought there would be no usage from Cricut users as a part of this consideration. But at this point, we have no concerns with continued use of Cricut players based on current allocation.
On this point, I'll just jump in for a second with a question because I think we're getting to where we need to be. What is the current allocation? We expect that to continue, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct? And I think this is the line of questioning I was on earlier, and just trying to understand this piece. There's a reasonable allocation currently, is what I'm hearing. We don't expect that to change. And could that allocation continue on these sites? Is that the expectation? And I guess I think we're on the same path here, Councillor Pettingill, trying to get at this answer.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. Yes, it's a reasonable expectation to maintain existing allocation and find opportunities for marginalized or underserved groups to increase access. The policy, one of the policy intents, update intents, is to increase equity across allocation. So it's not to further marginalize groups such as Cricut.
Okay. And do we have an idea? Is it possible to just share a rough idea of what that allocation looks like? Currently, I get that we're not proposing a change here, but I'm hearing some interest around the table in this matter. So that might be the missing piece of this puzzle for us. And I'll go back to you, Councillor Pettingill, to see if I took us off track or got us over the line of your line of question.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, just sort of wanting to make sure, because it sounds like one of the rationales for some of the design details is specifically to enable league play. So it's not just necessarily, some extra hours that might be reasonable for a local club. It's understanding that it's, maybe there's a weekend or two or whatever it requires for league play. I don't know what that entails, but and just trying to understand or make sure we have reasonable expectations. So will this actually likely enable league play in terms of field availability and the infrastructure is there? Or is it more like, no, maybe some local games for now, but that sort of league play might be tough because of competition for availability?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So two parts to the question. In terms of hours, we don't have that information on hand right now, but we can get it and provide it. In terms of league play, the expectation is that they would work within their existing allocation and work with the league to be able to utilize league play. So there's no change in the allocation policy that's required to support league play. They should be able to do it within their existing allocation, is our understanding.
Okay, thanks. And then just my other line of questioning, if I might. It looked like, as I was able to understand the report, a fair bit of the increase from our original estimate is in the cement and then the remediation of the adjoining fields because of all the work and machinery that's required. So if I play that through in my mind, if this is really successful, which I think we'd like it to be, we might quickly find we need at least two fields that were originally asked for. It doesn't seem like this site works. And, I'm sort of maybe making too many assumptions, but you might want two fields nearby each other. And I guess where I'm getting to is it seems like, uh, based on the installation costs for this removal to move to two fields somewhere else is going to be fairly expensive as well. Or do we anticipate, like, if we needed to tear this out because we wanted cricket fields somewhere else, that would be a sort of much lower cost piece of work?
Thank you for the question through the chair. At this time, we're not able to speculate on the cost to deconstruct the cricket pitch until we've built a cricket pitch.
Yep. Go ahead.
If I may add just a little bit more context, the other challenges we know from the feasibility assessment is that within the Squamish Valley, we're very limited in terms of land where one of these pitches can go. We're unfortunately in a very narrow mountainous valley with not a lot of large flat tracts of land. So that really limits where we can actually invest in an asset like this, which is why in 2024 we landed on the Brennan Park field. So at this point, there aren't really other options for where to put this without some significant land discussions in the future.
Okay. I've got Councillor Greenlaw who hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. I just had a relatively simple question. I'm sorry if I missed this, but originally I thought that the contribution from the cricket players was much higher than it is now. What's happened to that difference?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So there's been several changes to the contribution once staff have been able to better understand what the contribution contained. As my colleague Tim mentioned too, some of the initial contribution was based on 2 pitches being built instead of 1. So the contribution was lowered once we determined that the recommendation was 1 pitch versus 2. The other reductions in contribution were based on in-kind donations that staff recommended to not receive because of complexities in receiving those in-kind donations. So the staff have recommended to only receive cash contributions to support this project, therefore reducing the total amount of contributions.
And sorry, would you be able to clarify what in-kind contributions were offered?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. The specific contribution was irrigation work offered, which is complex work to our fields that are highly co-located. So yeah, that was the contribution that was offered.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I think I maybe need to preface my questions here. I am at this point quite supportive of me moving forward with this project, even with the price tag. My questions here, I see this is an example of that cone of uncertainty. And this is a factor of 3 or 4 that showed up in the cone of uncertainty, right? In some versions, but not others. And so I'm trying to rationalize and balance this, how we move forward with projects as a council when we see here's a $50,000 project. How do we know whether there's a factor of 3 or 4 uncertainty on it or a factor of 20 or 30%? So that's just, I'd like to get a better handle on that. In order to get a better handle on that, one of the pieces of information I would really like to understand is, number one, the feasibility and design work. We have the attachment on the staff report from Squamish Cricket Club. And we've spent, I think, $22,000 on consultant work for feasibility and design, but I didn't see a feasibility and design report from the consultant. Could we have access to the full feasibility design report from the consultant?
Through the chair, thanks for the question.
Just want to double check, Ms. Latimer, do you want to take this one, or do you want to, whoever is appropriate?
Thank you, through the chair. The feasibility assessment that was conducted in 2024 was presented to council. It wasn't shared as an attachment at that time. That has been sent to council via email earlier today for your reference.
Just the 2024 one, or the one that informed this budget?
The feasibility assessment, which looked at the location, that was shared this morning, and as well as the detailed design.
I see an email from 1208. Okay, I'll have a look at that. My second question is on our processes. So we had a $50,000, roughly $50,000 project allocated here. And we spent $22,000 in feasibility and design. What is that a normal part of our processes to spend such a high fraction of a total project budget on feasibility and design? I'm struggling to understand how we could spend that much money on feasibility and design and still possibly achieve the outcome without a budget increase. So where in our policies and procedures do we manage the decision-making about how much to spend on planning and feasibility?
Who would like to take that piece of this puzzle? Recognize that it's beyond, or it's it's a core part of this, but it's also a bit bigger than the project itself. But would anyone like to, who's best suited to address that?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. I'll just sit to my colleague, Harmony Cornwell, Director of Facilities and Construction.
Okay, and I just chatting with we'll say acting CAO Latimer, there is opportunity for a timeout if staff need to have a huddle to make sure that we get the answers that we need. If that's where we're heading, I would like to just go around with council, see if there's any additional questions, just so that all of those can be addressed through timeout. I feel like we'd be well served with that on this one. And that's what was signaled here. So do you have, are you okay that, would you like to ask any other question before we?
I'll have one more that staff might appreciate.
Yeah, let's do it. And if the response is that'll be part of the timeout, that's totally fine.
Great. So my second question is regarding the in-kind contributions. And this is not specifically on the in-kind contribution of the irrigation. I'm trying to understand where our policies allow and where they don't allow community groups to do work on district property. And I'll take an example of Sorka, who did the amazing bike park on Brennan Park land. That bike park, I can't even fathom to think how much that would have cost us to do. And so what aspects of our policies, and specifically which policies, prevent us from simply allowing a community group the ability to construct a 30-meter by 2.5-meter concrete pad on one of our fields for their $18,000? That's the core of my question, is that. So, but where is our policy? Can I read that policy to understand what we might be able, if we need to change something, what might we change to be able to have our community contribute?
I can answer that question now through the chair. Thanks for the question. So there is no policy that defines that. However, staff assessments are in line with best practices, and each in-kind donation is situationally assessed by staff. In high risk and highly co-located areas like fields, there's a greater risk that in-kind work can lead to short and long-term field maintenance issues that also impact other users. So that's quite different than something like a segregated area of like a bike park that's being built independently outside of a highly co-located area. There's a number of other complexities staff have to consider, which include insurance, occupational health and safety, contract valuations, prime, non-prime contractor, for work being done through in-kind contributions. All these considerations are why we determined that accepting this type of donation would not be in our best interest. But to summarize, there is no policy, and there is the potential opportunity in the future for the community agreements policy to support nonprofits who are contributing in-kind donations towards projects. However, that policy is working through implementation at this point. So we cannot apply it to this project at this point. So there could be opportunity within that project or that policy to consider in-kind contributions.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll take a brief timeout so staff can huddle on that bigger question. Following Councillor Stoner's question. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to ask this in case staff need a little bit of time, but I am just curious about the timing here and why this wasn't picked up in the regular budgeting cycle. So if the majority of the money was spent for the initial feasibility assessment and location back in 2024, why are we here in a spring amendment for a doubling of the project costs and not in the regular budgeting cycle?
Thanks for the question. We'll answer that question during the timeout as well.
Okay, so with that in mind, we'll take a timeout. I think these generally we've needed 10 for this. We'll get a bit of a break as well. So we'll take a 10-minute recess and we'll reconvene the discussion following that. So 10-minute recess. Thank you. just a reminder to turn that back on. All right, welcome back. We're back after a brief break. Before the break, we had some questions for staff they wanted to confer on. So I will turn it back to staff, whoever's best suited to answer the question. Go ahead.
Thank you for the question through the chair. My name is Harmony Cornwell. I'm the Director of Facilities and Sustainability, and I'm here to answer the question that I believe was about the cost escalation of the original estimate. The capital delivery presentation we did on March 10th, while out of scope of this particular presentation, I would just like to tip my hat to that presentation and just say that this estimate was very early days, and getting it to the point of approval was a very compressed time. It is a smaller project within a compressed time, so we can be subjected to wider fluctuations in the project estimate, and it is reflecting the current market conditions. We update as we know more, and that is what we have here today. We do have an alternate recommendation within this presentation that we can defer the building of the cricket pitch, but we also want to be very mindful of the external relationships we have with the community and the work and effort they've put into the work thus far. So really just to say that they are estimates, we're refining the estimates, and the smaller project budget has created the additional fluctuations that you're seeing today. But as we're learning more, we're sharing what we've learned.
Okay, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, perhaps I didn't articulate my question carefully enough. We had a $54,000 budget, if I recall correctly. It was somewhere in that order. And we spent $22,000 on feasibility and design work. So we made the decision to spend close to half the budget on feasibility and design. So what's not clear to me is how we spent that much money on it while still thinking we might be able to finish the project in budget. So where within our decision-making processes do we decide how much to spend on design and feasibility versus project completion?
Thank you for the question through the chair. What I do understand is that that money was spread out between 2024 and 2025 while trying to refine the estimate. And not being here or being involved in the project before this, I'm not comfortable in commenting on why some of the decisions were made, but I would like to say that that is why we're here today, is to present our findings, and this is the money we've spent to refine the estimate to the point that we are comfortable coming back and have a contingency embedded within that amount that we feel comfortable that we can deliver the project if council decides to go forward.
Thank you. Ms. Latimer.
Thank you. And if I can just add, the detailed design and the feasibility work that was done on this, I mean, this is really based on what the market dictates. We're working with consultants on this. To date, it's been, I think, $22,000 that's been spent on the detailed design. And we're looking at the construction budget of being $140,000, if that helps put into context. So as the estimate has matured, so too has the overall cost of the project. So $22,000 for design work and $140,000 is our estimate for the construction work.
Okay, thanks. In the original cost breakdown, did we have an estimate for how much the detailed design and feasibility study would cost?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. That was not a part of the original budget.
Okay, so I'm still struggling. And this may be a policy question. This is not a question about the cricket pitch. This is not a question about the cricket pitch. This is a question about how our policies are in place. So I just want to be clear that this isn't about cricket.
Thank you for identifying that. I have a couple thoughts on how to move forward here. One, I want to recognize that I have Councillor Pettingill's hand up online, and I'll come to you, Councillor Pettingill. I think that how we got here is important, but also we are here, and I think we need to delineate between those. So I really appreciate the line of questioning around how we got here. I do think that's important, but we also have to figure out a path forward. So if we can break it into those two pieces, what do we do from here? And then how do we have that other question answered to make sure that we're all, again, speaking about the same thing in the same way. So if we could put the how we got here piece aside if we can, and work on this decision that we have in front of us, because it's linked very much to the broader spring amendment and so on. And if we can't, that would be a reason to take an alternative course of action than what was than the staff recommendation. But I think that's likely how we would best way to resolve that. Although I think the issue you raise is a broader understanding of how these things could do work and could and should work to make sure we get better outcomes for our process. So I see both of those things. So I'll let you ponder that for a second. I'm going to go to Councillor Pettingill, and then I'll come back to you as we work towards a motion of some sort here. Councillor Pettingill, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly in terms of field allocation and where we are. And just going back looking at the report, the pictures and so on, is cricket being played now without the quote unquote proper field, proper pitch, and so it's just giving that existing activity a proper pitch, or are we going to have to carve out hours that aren't carved out right now as well as build the pitch?
Thanks for the question through the chair. There will be no additional hours allocated as a result of this infrastructure construction. We made it clear in October that they must still maintain their allocation based on what they have. And this is just to improve the experience and allow them to participate in league play. And then we'll look at opportunities for allocation as we update the allocation policy.
But sorry, just for my clarity then, so they are playing cricket right now in that area, just without the pitch that's proposed.
Through the chair, that's correct. They are playing with a temporary cricket pitch.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, thank you. So, Council, we are past the time allocated to this. We need to start grappling with the where to from here. We have the recommendations before us. We have alternates. We also can choose. Not all paths are open to us at this point with our process, but as like, for example, just a reminder that a refer back or something like that is effectively deferring this to another budget cycle in the fall next year. So obviously that would impact implementation, but go ahead. I can see you getting ready there, Councillor Hamilton. Over to you.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation. And I'm debating whether to do this as an amending my own motion so that it's clearer for council to make decisions on two different components. So I think maybe I will move the staff recommendation with a note that I will probably be making an amendment to my own motion in order to,
Okay, let's go.
Or-
So at this point, you're moving the staff recommendation is what I'm hearing. Are you? Okay, I'll allow the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Just for clarity, so in 2024, the class estimate that we had for the work was a Class D. Do we have, like, are we at a Class A? If we can use this language that we're all now familiar with.
Thank you for the question through the chair. The current estimate is a Class B. So we have refined it considerably since the original estimate of a D.
I'll also add there's a question around allocation. It's roughly about 28 to 31 hours per month for the cricket club. Their season runs generally from March through August.
Okay, thank you. So we have Councillor Hamilton moving the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor French seconds. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Hamilton?
yeah, thanks very much. If I take this project as a whole, and I think is this spend $162,000, is it of significant benefit to our community to add a sport effectively to the another sport folks can play with proper facilities in our community? Absolutely. When I look at the $162,000 and I piece down how we get to that enormous a number for what is effectively a slab of concrete with AstroTurf on top of it, that's the piece that I'm struggling with. And so, yeah, let me leave it there and let others comment if they like.
Thank you. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor French. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, the struggle is real. Construction budgets for anything, whether it's a debris barrier all the way down to a little bit of concrete on a playing field, in the last couple of years has escalated exponentially. I think that this cricket project is important. We've got the space to accommodate the pitch. It's a game that is popular around the globe. And I think that we here in Squamish are playing catch up a little bit with cricket. And I love that this game is very colorful in that a lot of minorities are playing this game. And I'd love to see that additional culture at Brennan Park to go with the baseball and the soccer that dominates those fields at this point. And when I think about this funding for this project and my own passion for pickleball, if I had to make a decision of whether this funding would go to a cricket pitch or more pickleball courts, I would side with cricket. That's how important I think it is to add this game to our repertoire here in Squamish.
Thank you, Councillor Greenlaw.
Thanks. Through the chair, I'm going to listen more to comments around the table before I decide how I vote. My main concerns are, as Councillor Hamilton pointed out, this isn't actually a tripling in the budget or a doubling. It's actually a quintuple in the amount of money that the District of Squamish is committing towards it. So again, that's another conversation that I really want to have around this table is how do we tighten up Class D estimates, because time and time again, this is where we end up. And that's a procedural and behind the scenes conversation. But the other piece is I would really like to see, you know, the district having more flexibility to receive in-kind donations from community groups, because if we could have collaboration in construction on pieces like this, as we have in the past with, you know, facilities like the golf course and Brennan Park in different times, you know, if we could see collaboration like that coming forward, it would be so much easier to push projects like this forward. But instead, what we're seeing is massive cost escalations. And of course, if we say no to this now, then in 4 years' time is going to be even more expensive. If we could see more collaboration with in-kind donations, that would be just such a help to having our community amenity needs met. So yeah, I'm just going to listen more to what's being said and then decide how I'm going to vote on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Stoner, go ahead. And I see you, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thank you. I will be supporting the motion on the floor. I think from a 40,000 foot view, this is a good investment in our community, in a sport that is growing, provides diversification for different recreation options, and it is a good use of the limited field space that we have. I've heard from staff and from previous work that there really aren't very many options, and so this is the way forward. I do continue to have questions around our process around cost escalations and how we manage that, but I think putting community amenity contributions towards something like this will be well served for our community. And relative to some of the other projects that we are moving forward, I don't think is totally out of line with some of the other things that we're investing in, like $150,000 to pave the parking lot towards the BMX track and the turf field. Like relative, that's a good investment. I think it's just the process on how we got here and how we help community groups who are volunteer run, fairly small, continue to engage with our processes in a way that is meaningful and efficient for all of us so that we can deliver these amenities that everybody's looking for. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pettingill. I'll come back.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to support this. I think it is delivering a sport to a part of our community that hasn't had as many sports tailored to them relative to how much a lot of these things cost. It isn't one of the bigger ones. My recollection of pickleballs that started off, I think, in the first ask was like it's supposed to be a $5,000 or $10,000 ask, and we ended up at $500,000 and still counting with court rehabilitations and so on. So, yeah, some interesting perspective there. I think CAC's community amenity contributions from development is meant to offset some of the pain from development that people feel, and so I think this is a really good use of a tangible benefit from development for the community. So I appreciate that. I do appreciate too that this is looking at a multi-use. So there is many shared aspects in this. It's not one piece of land dedicated singly to one sport. It's doing it in a way where it shares it. The downside is then it complicates it, and it does make it harder for a community group to do it on its own because it disturbs the adjoining fields. And that's part of the cost complexity here. So I do see the difference between this and the Circa bike park with the irrigation and the field damage. I do sort of wonder if this takes off as we hope it will, as I think it might, that there will be pressure to find a way to put a couple fields together and then have some anxiety about what does that do about this location. But I feel like this has taken a while, and we have something that can move forward now with CAC funds. And so I think we should support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to you next. I just have some comments, and then Councillor Hamilton has an amendment he'd like to propose. I'm speaking in support of the motion. I think there is the matter. I think that's impacting this is the how we got here. I think there's opportunity, and council we've recognized that through partnering with community on initiatives such as this. And I think this is actually a case of where exhibits why we would need that policy that we have and we're starting to implement, but we're a ways from implementation. So there are examples where we've had successes both historically and in more recent times. The Circa bike the skills park was brought up in this conversation. That's an example, but there's many more throughout the community. But it's the having a clear process for this to happen and to make sure that we're protected in our operations, and like the knock-on impacts of these types of proposals are accounted for. So I do think it's appropriate that we advance this work at this time. And I do think that part of the process has challenges have been exacerbated by sort of the need for that policy that we have. And we're not quite there yet, but we've taken some substantial steps so that in future, a deeper level of collaboration can happen with community, or it can at least be defined what the expectations are from our our side as we can contemplate these more sort of partnering to achieve these things. So I'm happy to see the community amenity contributions sort of as the funding source here. Again, as others have mentioned, community amenities contributions are meant to deliver amenities to community through when development occurs. So I think bringing those to ensuring that that those get brought to bear sort of as closely linked to the development that has occurred is important, and is something that we've struggled with because of the complexity of delivering projects. So I'm happy to see this move forward, and it's great to see this new sport that is relatively new to Squamish through this process getting really entrenched in a solid way, concreted, I guess, because into community, and I'm excited to see this move forward. So I am going to go back to with that said, I'm going to go back to Councillor Hamilton. You have an amendment for us, and I just want to touch base. Councillor Pettingill, is that a legacy hand?
I had one comment I wanted to add, actually, if I'm not cut off.
We'll see if you can incorporate it into this discussion we're going to have about a proposed amendment. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks. So there's two aspects here that I'd like to use this project to deepen my understanding of how we come to delivering projects. One of them being our decision-making process. And I can't articulate a specific enough motion that I think will get us there. But on my other piece, in understanding how we balance the cost estimates with the actual project cost delivery, I have an amendment that I would like that staff present a fully detailed report to council. I can send this by email on the actual project cost breakdown upon completion of the cricket pitch project.
Before I go, I just want to have just a quick question, Mover, before we. Is this specific to this? Like, this is specific to this project? Is the motion that you're making? Okay. And Councillor Greenlaw, sorry, were you seconding? You're seconding that motion, and I'm going to go to. Sorry, I see your hand, Ms. Flamboudon.
Can I clarify that we're adding this as number 3 as a standalone element? Yes.
Yes. Okay, and that is what Councillor Greenlaw seconded. Yep. Would you like to add? I feel like you spoke to it in your preamble, but you're welcome to speak to it. No. I'll go to the seconder. Councillor Greenlaw, any comment on this?
No, I think it's a good conversation to have. Like I alluded to earlier, I mean, it is difficult sitting in this seat when you're given one description of the project and you have certain preconceived notions of how that's going to go forward. And then when that changes, as the conversation progresses, I feel like the more we can limit those changes and have more predictability throughout our project evolution, I think the better. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Other comments on the amendment? Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Just a question through the chair to the mover. Curious how this differs from either like our quarterly reports on major capital projects and or our quarterly variance reports.
Yeah, and maybe I need to be more clear. I mean a line by line detailed breakdown of the costs of the project so that I can see the connection between projected costs, estimated costs, and real costs. I fully recognize that this is just one example, but I don't know where else to start.
I appreciate that additional context. I won't be supporting the motion. I understand where you're trying to get to. I don't think pulling out this particular project is a fulsome way to address that challenge. I think that there's other ways that we can do that. That would probably give us better information on how we manage projects, big and small, of various sizes. And then I think the previous presentation that staff gave on March 10th around some lessons learned of the first major capital projects that we have started to embark on was helpful. And in that presentation, I heard an effort towards moving towards a project management office type of structure with probably some more fulsome reporting. And so I think I'd rather leave that conversation there in a more fulsome way as opposed to pulling this out for the specific cricket pitch project. If you were looking for a detailed budget at the time of incorporating it into the spring amendment to better understand how the Class B would align against the Class D estimate, that was something that I would be willing to support. But in terms of post-construction cost breakdown, I feel like that is too little too late for me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I think really what we're asking for here is basically a case study so that we can do these postmortems on it. But to Councillor Stoner's comment, I mean, are we supposed to do that for every single project that's underway? I think that's the issue. Like, how do we minimize the burden that we're putting on staff as we assess how these projects are moving through our systems? And like one of the pieces that we get a lot from the public, for instance, is there is this perception anyways that we're spending a lot of money on consultants. So like, how much did we spend on a consultant relative to the overall cost of the project? And pieces like that could be unearthed through a process like this. So yeah.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the motion. I think that although I understand and I share the want to understand the processes and where there's room for improvement, I think that we've had some discussion around delivery of capital projects. I think doing a deeper dive on a completed project makes more sense than, hey, this one project's going to receive an extra level of scrutiny than anything else is a strange point in time to introduce it, and I think would vary could vary the outcome. I also think that I would support a motion to maybe include this into the quarterly updates, which I don't know that would automatically do that because the size of the project is quite small. Like something like that I would support, but this particular piece, I think we're spending energy in the wrong not quite pointing this at the right spot. So I won't be supporting the motion at this time. Any other comments on this? Yeah, Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I think I won't support this motion. I support the intent. We've had a number of discussions about wrapping our heads around Class A, B, C, and D estimates and how that flows through to our budgeting and how we deal with contingency and all of that. And so I think there is something in here in this topic. I do worry about tying it to this particular vote and also this particular project. It's not clear to me this project is indicative. So I think maybe it's something to take offline, but to have a conversation. Is there something specific we need to ask for in terms of reporting and management of capital projects? Because I think we are trying to rationalize and understand as an organization and get tighter and tighter. And so for me, pulling out this one doesn't feel quite right. I would prefer a more sort of a broader, bigger picture that looks at the variation across these things, because some of these questions have come up a few times.
Okay, any additional comments before I call the question? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor and opposed? Mayor Herford, Councillor Stoner, Councillor French, Councillor Pettingill oppose. Amendment fails. So we're back to the main motion. Councillor Pettingill, did you have? Sorry, before the amendment, you said you had some additional comments before I call the question.
Yeah, just the one piece of hesitation I have in this, and I know our partnership policy means to get at some of this, but I actually have some discomfort around accepting the community contribution. And on the one hand, we know there are some projects that won't get done without the community supporting, but we don't have a consistent level. And I would hesitate to go towards a thing where the community with the most money is the one that gets their projects, because it's not just a question of cash, it's a question of available land and fields and space and so on. And so making sure that allocation is fair and isn't just tied to the wealthiest people get the sports they want is I guess something that makes me feel a bit itchy. I think all things considered, in this case, I'm comfortable moving forward, but I just wanted to flag that as a thing that will require more thought as our partnership policy moves forward.
Okay, thank you. And just a point of clarity for maybe this is from staff. These two motions seem to duplicate. Is that duplication necessary? It's we need both of those pieces to move this forward. It just seems like a weird process thing, but I just wanted to clarify that we need both of those motions because they kind of say the same thing largely. And if they're both required, it's fine. I just want to make sure that we're
They're not necessarily required. We wanted to be very explicit that that contribution was accounted for, and to ensure that if we need to look back at this historically, it's a clear roadmap as to how the funding was determined.
okay. Thank you. And just that came up in my mind as Councillor Pettingill was speaking, as potentially severing these two, but they're both so intertwined that I don't see value in doing that. So I'm going to, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor and opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll take a 5-minute recess just to reset for the next topic, and we'll be back with the 2025 year-end Q4 financial report. We'll make that 3:30 for everybody. Welcome back, everybody. We're on item 4.2, which is our 2025 year-end Q4 financial report, key projects update, and financial plan amendment for carry forward projects. I will turn it over to staff to run us through their presentation. And just for those in the room, we have Councillor Pettingill joining us remotely today as well. I'll turn over to staff.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Rianne Sousa, and I'm the Director of Financial Operations at the district. I'm recovering from a bit of a cold, so I apologize for my voice. I'm joined here today by Harmony Cornwell, Director of Facilities and Sustainability, and Laura Turner, Director of Financial Planning and Reporting. We are also joined by budget managers who will assist with answering Council's project-specific questions. The presentation has 4 goals. The first goal is to present the 2025 year-end financial report, also referred to as the Q4 report. To note, these results are preliminary and are not finalized until the year-end audit is complete. The audited year-end financial statements are scheduled to be presented to Council on May 5th, 2026. The second goal is to present the key projects update. The third is to seek authorization to carry forward the remaining Squamish River dike raising Upper Jimmy Judd Slough project and seek approval from grant funders for a scope change. The fourth is to present an amendment to the 2026 to 2035 financial plan for first 3 readings to enable advancement of projects that were underway in 2025. Special and capital projects have been grouped into 4 categories. Annual projects are required for ongoing infrastructure maintenance. These projects are to some extent non-discretionary, as failure to provide for this work could lead to failure of critical district infrastructure. To note, some of these projects are extensive and span multiple years. Carry forwards may be expected for these projects. Single-year projects are one-time, one-year projects expected to begin and be completed in the year. Carry forwards are not generally anticipated for these projects. However, they may occur for various reasons. Multi-year projects are multi-phased, and therefore budgets are often established across the fiscal years using high-level and preliminary general estimates. It may shift once the estimates progress from Class D through Class A to tender award. There will always be movement between fiscal periods, regardless of progression. Carry forwards are expected annually for these projects. Grant-dependent projects only proceed if the grant funds are awarded. Additionally, in the appendices of the report, each project has been assigned a status of not started, in progress, complete, canceled, or delayed. Notably, the statuses are as of December 31st, 2025. Therefore, the projects have progressed since that time. Prior to moving into the special and capital projects, I'd like to provide background information on the financial plan. The financial plan provides the authority to commence projects, undertake procurement, incur expenditures, and it establishes the funding source for each approved project. Project timelines are determined by project scope, contractor and consultant availability, and contract delivery method. While the financial plan is developed on a fiscal year basis, many projects are seasonally driven and may extend across 1 or more fiscal year end. Only those projects that are included and approved within the financial plan are authorized to proceed. Projects that are not budgeted cannot be initiated. There are 62 special projects in the approved financial plan with a total budget of $11.4 million. At December 31st, 2025, 12 are in progress, 24 are complete, 3 are canceled, and 23 are delayed. As detailed in the previous slide, 3 special projects have been canceled and 23 have been delayed. Common themes for delays and cancellations are two major work plan disruptors, which were the Dryden Creek wildfire in Q2 and the labor dispute in Q3 and 4. Cancellation of projects that are dependent on grant funding when the grant funding is not awarded. Consultants or contractors not being available within the projected timeline, and staffing vacancies. It's important to note that each special project that was delayed or canceled has its own unique reason for the delay or cancellation. These are detailed in the appendices of the report.
Based on the results of the year-end financial report, amendment to the 2026 to 35 financial plan bylaw is required to include the budgets for projects in the 2025 to 29 financial plan that are still in progress. The bylaw amendment, as attached to the report to council, addresses carry forwards of budgets into 2026 only. If any other budget amendments become necessary, such as addressing changing cost estimates or funding sources, those changes will be brought forward to council as part of the spring amendment on April 21st. It's also important to note that the carry forward projects are fully funded in the 2025 to 29 financial plan, and therefore carrying them forward has no impact on the 2026 taxation levels. For special operating projects, budgets carried forward into 2026 total 4.5 million and include 75,000 for single year projects, 1.7 million for multi-year projects, including the real estate and facilities master plan pre-development and landfill expansion pre-design and permitting, and 2.8 million for other externally dependent projects, including WLNG, FortisBC, and Housing Accelerator Fund projects.
There are 124 capital projects in the approved financial plan with a total budget of 136 million. The four largest projects make up 53% of the total capital project budget. The four largest projects are the Public Works Facility Replacement, Quinnipiac Park Sea Dike upgrades, and Brennan Park Projects 1 and 2 Recreation Center upgrades. At December 31st, 2025, 1 has not started, 21 are in progress, 31 have been completed, 6 are canceled, and 65 are delayed. As detailed in the previous slide, 6 capital projects have been canceled and 65 have been delayed. As with special projects, there are some common themes and delays for cancellation, such as 2 major work plan disruptors, which were the Dryden Creek wildfire in Q2 and the labor dispute in Q3 and Q4. Cancellation of projects that are dependent on grant funding when the grant funding is not awarded. Consultants or contractors not being available within the projected timeline. Staffing vacancies. Projects that are dependent on developer timelines that have been delayed by the developer. And strategic delays. For example, projects that have been paused to allow for review by the newly created Recreation Task Force. It's important to note that as with special projects, capital projects that were delayed or canceled, each has its own unique reason for the delay or cancellation. These are detailed in the appendices of the report.
For the capital projects, budgets carried forward to 2026 total 65.4 million, including 1.7 million for annual projects, 2.3 million for single year projects, including fleet vehicle replacements, 44.6 million for multi-year projects, including the new Public Works Facility, Quinnipiac Park Sea Dike, and the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and 16.8 million for externally dependent projects, such as the Brennan Park Rec Center revitalization and Squamish River dike raising, which will be discussed further on the next slide.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Reid Plaster. I'm a project manager in the capital projects team within engineering, and I'm actively managing the Squamish River dike raising project. This project included raising, widening, and armoring approximately 900 meters of the existing dike to improve flood protection for Brackendale and the Garibaldi estates. This was the highest priority project identified in the 2017 Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan. The works on the dike raising were substantially completed in 2025, and minor weather-dependent deficiencies are planned to be completed this spring. This work was externally funded through a grant where 73% of eligible costs are recoverable. The project is currently on track to finish approximately $3.2 million under budget, of which $2.3 million is grant funding, and the remaining funding is being funded through borrowing. Through preliminary conversations with the external funding administrator, staff understand that surplus funding may be eligible to complete additional upgrades to the same dike, but this would require a formal amendment application and subsequent approval from the funders. There are documented concerns about the dike to the north of the current project footprint, which includes a portion of the dike within Squamish Nation's lands. Squamish Nation previously communicated a desire for the district to upgrade this portion of the dike in 2018. This portion of the dike would provide protection to Squamish Nation and district lands, including culturally sensitive areas. More recently, Squamish Nation staff provided a letter of support to the district to pursue the external funding change with the grant funders. Staff are seeking endorsement to carry forward $150,000 to complete the final deficiencies of the 900-meter portion of the dike that was substantially completed in 2025 to fulfill those contractual commitments. Additionally, staff are seeking endorsement to include an additional 300 meters of dike upgrades as a scope change to the project. This would necessitate a carry forward of the $3.2 million underspend, which includes approximately $2.3 million of external funding, and again, approximately $900,000 of borrowing. The additional scope would improve flood resiliency, and capitalize on external funding should the scope amendment be approved by the external funders.
The annual operating revenues budget is $144.6 million. The revenues from January 1st to December 31st, 2025 total $135.7 million, which is 94% of the annual budget. The $8.9 million variance is primarily due to government grants are $16.8 million less than budget, as conditional government grants are recognized as revenue when the expenditures they're funding are incurred. This is the result of capital project delays. The grant revenues will be recorded in a future year. Developer cost charges are $3.8 million less than budget, as DCCs are recognized as revenue when the expenditures they're funding are incurred. This is also the result of capital project delays. The DCC revenues will be recorded in a future period or year. Gain on sale of assets is $2 million less than the budget due to adjustment required by public sector accounting standards. Notably, this is a non-cash adjustment. Capacity funding is $1.7 million less than budget, as capacity funding is recognized when as revenue when the expenditures they're funding are incurred. Unused capacity funding has been deferred to future years. The revenues that are under budget are offset by developer contributed assets are $12.7 million greater than budget, as contributed tangible capital assets from developers are not budgeted. Notably, these are non-cash transactions. Investment income is $2.4 million greater than budget, as investment income earned on provisions and reserves is not budgeted. The annual operating expenditures budget is $94 million. The expenditures incurred from January 1st to December 31st, 2025 total $86.2 million, which is 92% of the annual budget. The $7.8 million variance is primarily due to special projects are $5.4 million less than budgeted. Staffing vacancies of $1.8 million led to lower than anticipated salary costs. RCMP member vacancies of $790,000 led to lower than anticipated RCMP contract costs. Interest on debt is $530,000 less than budget due to the use of working capital to temporarily fund capital projects rather than issuing temporary debt, which allowed the district to save on interest costs. Diversion expenditures are $425,000 less than budget due to processing less than anticipated recyclables. Maintenance costs of $299,000 for the Powerhouse Springs well were less than anticipated. And the pedestrian bridge operations budget of $250,000 was not spent as the bridge construction is being delayed until 2026. The savings are offset by a $1.45 million revaluation of the landfill closure asset retirement obligation. It is increased due to the addition of a contingency and other cost increases. I'd like to note that in Appendix 3, the net surplus percentage should be a 1.2% variance, not a 21% variance. I will now turn it over to Harmony Cornwell to provide the key projects update.
Thank you. My name is Harmony Cornwell, Director of Facilities and Sustainability. I will present all the updates, and the project managers who are running each of the key projects today are in the room for any follow-up questions. The objective of the key project update is to provide information to Council and the community on a number of projects, including information on project timelines, including any change since the prior update period, project budgets, project activities for the period of December 1st, 2025 to February 28th, 2026, and project achievements, issues, and related impacts. For the purpose of this update, we are defining key projects as those with a value of greater than $25 million or of high community interest and not appearing on the council agenda as a separate item. The Chikai Barrier is a developer-led project that is being completed under a services agreement. Once construction is complete, the district will take ownership of the barrier. The project is currently 90% complete. Substantial performance is anticipated in early May 2026, and final acceptance is anticipated in July of 2026. District staff will be providing a fulsome update on the barrier as a separate presentation later this evening at the regular business meeting. The Huanaic Park Sea Dike project is progressing on track for completion in summer 2026 as previously communicated. Since the last update, several key and exciting milestones have been achieved, which include completion of all groundwork improvement works, the installation of the full sheet pile wall and water access piles, and finally, fabrication and installation of the concrete float and access ramps you can see in the photo here. Work on the habitat bench continued to advance, as well as the fill behind the sheet pile wall that will become the cycling and pedestrian path. The contractor will be focusing on planting the habitat benches and pouring the concrete coat beam along the top of the sheet pile wall in the near future. The lateral landfill expansion project is a new addition to the key project update and will be part of the quarterly report going forward. As you are aware, the current landfill is on track to be full in late 2029, and we want to ensure you are kept up to date on this critical piece of infrastructure. Recent achievements for this project include temporary land access being acquired to enable tree clearing and drilling wells and the completed habitat compensation report. Tree clearing and temporary road building is nearing completion, and drilling will begin shortly. These wells will provide the district with the information needed to meet provincial permitting requirements. Next steps include continuing the sponsored Crown Land Grant application process, as well as additional Ministry of Forest processes, meeting with the SLRD to discuss additional financing options, and completing the other final permitting requirements. The final permit application is anticipated to be submitted in June of this year. The Brennan Park upgrade project has entered the final weeks of the renovation. Key interior works are largely finished, including lobby, arena space, and back of house areas, with all flooring, ceilings, millwork, and painting completed. The elevator and accessible viewing area are now complete and ready for occupancy inspection. Earlier project challenges with humidity have been resolved, and the conditions have now stabilized with the new HVAC system coming online and being balanced and commissioned. The finishing touches are being focused on, with final occupancy inspection expected to take place this week. The new furniture is being ordered this week, and we expect it in a few weeks. It could take up to 5 to 8 weeks before it is installed. The Public Works project is progressing well, with major structural elements now complete for both the workshop and the office building. Interior work is underway, including HVAC rough-ins and finishing, while key systems like the hydronic heating and concrete installation are complete. Building envelope components are advancing on the office structure and are already completed on the workshop. Upcoming work includes interior finishes, exterior completion of the office, and planning for the transition of equipment to the new space. The overall construction of the structures are approximately 45% complete, with contingency tracking in line at 38% spent to date. The Recreation Center Task Force is another new addition to these project updates. The selection of the Recreation Center Task Force primary consultant is underway, with the request for proposal stage now being closed. The submitted proposals will be reviewed by the task force members. Future RCTF updates will include the Splash Park and other co-located projects at Brennan Park to improve efficiency and alignment with the interdependent projects. After consultant selection, next steps will focus on contract negotiation and onboarding the selected consultant and initiating the project, with key early priorities being a broader assessment, which are a broader assessment of electrical and mechanical systems to support potential future facility upgrades. And with that, we'll bring to the recommendations that Council receive the 2025 year-end financial report, key projects update, and financial plan amendment, carry forward projects for information. That Council authorize staff to carry forward the remaining $3.4 million budget for the Squamish River Dike Raising Upper Jimmy Judd Slough project, and to seek approval from external funders for a scope amendment to complete additional dike upgrades as presented to Council April 7th, 2026, and that District of Squamish 2026 to 2035 10-year financial plan bylaw number 3213 2025 amendment carry forward bylaw number 3226 2026 be given first, second, and third readings. And thank you. That concludes our presentation, and we'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Council, who would like to start us with questions? Councillor Stoner? Oh, sorry, I saw you reaching. Was that for something else, not the microphone?
Well, it was just trying to find my page, but I can get us started. Thank you through the chair to staff for all the work and the presentation. If I can start with the proposed piece on the Squamish River Dike project and the reallocation of the grant funding and borrowing for the additional 300 meters of dike. Can you just speak to where that sits in our overall diking master plan, if that still is one of the highest priority projects, or if we're just advancing it as a result of having grant funding potentially available?
Thank you for the question. Yes, this remains one of our highest priorities within our dike management program. Originally, the project focused on the segment of the dike that was most easily deliverable. Now that we have the understanding of this surplus funding, we're looking at delivering the remainder of the dike to the north. That again has been documented as being of high concern for flooding risk.
That's great. Thank you for that additional context. And hopefully our federal funding partners will show up and continue to allow us to use that money. I had a few high-level questions on just how do we decide when to advance a carry forward versus cancel or reprioritize a project?
Thank you for the question through the chair. I don't see any takers, so I will attempt. It's very, very much a project specific decision. So if we were to face a certain project, face something that is insurmountable, we would bring it to council to recommend the cancellation. It can happen at the carry forward point, and it also can happen at the various touch points of other variances, quarterly variance reports throughout the year. So again, there's not just one blanket reason. It would definitely be project specific, and it would absolutely be to council to decide whether or not that's a go, no go sort of situation.
Okay, thank you for that. And then with regards to the operating component of our budget that we're reporting on here, there are a number of pieces of work that we taxed for put into our operating budget and then didn't come to fruition. So for example, the pedestrian bridge operating budget, we expected that to come online this past year. It didn't. And so there's $250,000 sitting there. I'm going to channel my inner Doug Race and ask about carry forwards and how we can use them. I know we do have policy around this, and it typically goes into the general operating reserve. But that's a year of service that our community is never going to get. Like the bridge just didn't exist. And so where is the decision point in terms of whether that goes into an operating reserve or like actually just reduce the tax implication for this coming year, given that that's a realization of service that our community will never see?
I'll take this one as well. And so apologies, I didn't introduce myself in the previous. My name is Heather Boxer, General Manager of Financial IT and Procurement Services, as well as CFO. So in terms of policy, so the General Operating Reserve policy was put in place a few years ago, which addressed these situations whereby an operating variance would occur. What used to happen previous to that would be it would go into what we called the accumulated surplus and unappropriated. So that has been moved into in policy. In terms of when we look forward during the financial planning, and if we are aware based on the previous year's results that we have a operating balance that is no longer needed, it would become part of that financial reporting process. In terms of reallocating, if something's very early on, we could look at that. But certainly at this point in time, when results are happening, year end, the audit occurs, it's oftentimes late for this particular year to readdress. And that is where policy plays a big part. And we, that's how we have outlined in our policy currently. So general operating reserve. And there is structure around what that general operating reserve can be used for as well.
Okay, we'll go around. Thank you for getting us started. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. I want to focus first on the key projects updates. The update said the construction timeline for Public Works, so that Public Works was 45% complete. If I recall correctly, that was due for completion by June, maybe July 2026. Are we still on track for completion of the Public Works project in the timeline that we had several months ago?
Tim McBride, Project Manager for Facilities. Thanks for the question through the chair. Currently, we are still on track for finishing at the end of June.
Fantastic. We're 45% complete and on track. Both of those statements are true, and that if that's true, great. I don't understand what 45% complete means, but that's fine.
We are 45% complete through the structures, so the buildings themselves are 45% complete. That doesn't mean the project overall is 45% complete, but we are on track for a handover in June. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's the important piece. On track for handover. Thanks very much. Second question is on the Recreation Center Task Force. Are we on track from the timelines we received in December? Are we on track for those timelines, or are we falling behind on that?
Thank you for the question through the chair. I would say that those timelines will have to be updated once our consultant is onboarded. The procurement process was not fully vetted or was not fully understood in that timeline. So we will update the council once we have the consultant onboarded and have consulted with them on the timing they need. We have put in the request for proposal documents that we are still aiming to have a report in Q1 of 2027 and don't have any other information at this point.
Okay. So when I look back at the timelines that we had proposed back in December, February and March were supposed to be devoted to engagement, and it looks like we're back in what we had originally thought of, like project kickoff was sort of the first element. Are these delays going to be causing a significant additional like delay to the whole project timeline, or is this few months of delay going to be able to be caught up?
Thank you for the question through the chair. The intent is to get caught up if possible based on advice from our primary consultant. When we had the approval of the final budget, I believe was in early January, that was the time that we could go out to bid from a procurement perspective. So we were not able to initiate the project until we have that primary consultant on board. And one of our first tasks will be to review the overall schedule and see if we can still achieve the Q1 2027 delivery.
Okay, thanks. That's all for now. I have a couple more, but I'll wait.
Thank you. I've got Councillor French, then Pettingill.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. There was just one that jumped out at me. The strategic plan for the airport is indicating the project will start once the task force is launched. So the task force that's mentioned in the notes for the airport, is that the land back task force or a completely separate task force?
Through the chair, sorry.
Oh, we have Mr. Plum online. Go ahead, Mr. Plum.
I
Thank you for
apologize for the
joining us.
lighting. It looks like I'm in the witness protection program here a little bit, but hopefully you can see me. Yes, so they're different. The land back task force would be different from the airport task force. The airport is an item that was identified in the MOU with Squamish Nation. And I know we're talking about Q4. And at that point, when this document was created, we were in a process where we were waiting to meet again with the nation and set up a group between the two parties to move the airport strategy forward. And that work is ongoing right now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, I got a few, so just cut me off when I've asked too many. On page 37 of our special agenda, it says that diversion expenditures are down because we're processing less than anticipated recyclables. Do we know if that's because people are throwing more recyclables into the trash, or are we just doing a much better job on reuse and reduce and reuse?
Thank you through the chair. Good afternoon. My name is Shannon White. I'm the Integrated Solid Waste Specialist at the District of Squamish. So diversion of recyclables at the landfill is down. However, the reason for that is because during COVID, we actually saw a gigantic increase of use of our transfer station site as everyone was home, doing a lot of DIY, cleanups, etc. And so our numbers are both our revenue and costs increased for about a 3-year period. And we were budgeting off of those trends. And so this gap that we saw in 2025 is where these trends are starting to normalize, kind of pre-COVID. And so in the 2026, 2027 budget that will come up, you'll see we're trying to pull those numbers back to reflect the actuality of it. So it is not more recyclables going into the landfill. I can assure you.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. I guess next thing I have on page 59 of our package, it talks about a 21% surplus, but when I did the math, it's a 2.1% surplus. I just want to make sure that that's a typo and I'm not misunderstanding something.
Through the chair, you're correct. It's a typo. It's 2.1%.
Okay, great. And then onto the pedestrian bridge, we have a carry forward. I know the bridge itself is not our project, but I'm just looking for an understanding of, because the actual bridge itself has been delayed a few times, which is again a developer project, but we are going to be responsible for the operations. What's our turnaround time like? Once the bridge is finally ready, are we ready to operate it right away, or is there potential of a delay while we try and find and hire staff? Or just can you help me understand the risk there?
Through the chair, Devin Kinaga, Director of Public Works. Yeah, excellent question. Our readiness will also likely be tied to exactly when the bridge is ready. So the bridge is delayed or has been delayed, and the exact date that it'll be ready is still undetermined. We are prepared from a staffing perspective, but there are other elements that are still being worked out that we won't be able to work out until the bridge is basically completely ready, such as privacy concerns around use of cameras, for example. So until we get those elements sorted and we have all our ducks in a row on those other components, we won't know exactly when we will be able to take over the bridge. So we are, I'd say we're prepared, but there is a potential for us not being able to open the bridge to the public the moment that the bridge is handed over to the district, depending on how the bridge is finalized, if that makes sense.
So if I could just drill down, like, is there something that as a council we can or should be doing to be sort of as ready as possible that when the physical infrastructure is ready, we're ready to go as well?
Through the chair, I'm wondering if you can clarify that question a little bit.
Well, I guess I was sort of intrigued by your mention of, you know, some privacy things around cameras and so on. Like, is that a policy piece that we could be deciding now in the interim, or is there, you know, I'm just sort of would like to avoid a situation. I don't, you didn't say this, but I wouldn't want to be in a situation where, you know, the bridge is there, technically functional, but we have policy and hiring and stuff that for 6 months we can't use it thereafter. Like, just sort of making sure that we do whatever we can to avoid those sorts of gaps.
Through the chair, I see what you're saying. I'd say at this point, staff is on track to not realize those concerns. So yes, I'd say everything that we can be doing, we are doing at this point. So in terms of privacy, we have legislated services working with us on a privacy impact assessment, and we have I'd say we have all our ducks in a row ready to go once the bridge, like for example, once the cameras are installed. And the same goes for the staffing side of it. The same goes for the safe work procedure side of it. We're waiting on documentation and waiting on information from the developer to be able to then finalize our own side of it. And so we're ready to do that, but we need that information. Now, if that information all comes at the very last minute, there is time for us to complete all that, but it won't be a 6-month gap. You know, we're talking weeks, I'd say, realistically.
Thank you for that. Our corporate officer, Ms. Fulmado, would you like to chime in? I wasn't sure if that was a hand signal or not.
No, that is absolutely correct. My name is Melissa Mabudo, corporate officer. I just wanted to clarify that from a council perspective, the privacy piece is a legislated requirement. We have an obligation to complete a privacy impact assessment and to assess the personal information that will be collected by any cameras that are in use in any project. And we need to make sure that we have security measures in place and privacy measures in place to ensure that we are meeting our legislated requirements. So part of that, we won't be able to test until the cameras are installed. So that's where the delay may be, as Devin mentioned. Thanks.
Are you good for now, Councillor Pettingill?
I had one last one. Different topic. And this may be one where it's better for me just to speak to staff offline. I was intrigued by the one comment about installing Wi-Fi or conduit for Wi-Fi at Spockos Feather Park. Seeing the events that go there and knowing some of that similar infrastructure is actually very useful in providing lighting and audio and so on through a space. I just wonder, sort of a general question about how we make sure we're having the conversations that we are capitalizing on that sort of infrastructure to the best ability possible. And again, maybe that's to find a detail for this report, and I respect that. I just when I saw it in the report, it jumped out at me.
I think we have Mr. Morwood to speak to that.
Thank you. Through the chair, Dave Merrill, Director of Development Engineering. Yes, so that was Q4 2025. The Wi-Fi conduit has been installed in the park. It's part of the park. It's district owned. There's also a private third party who has installed Wi-Fi equipment throughout the park and is providing Wi-Fi service through the existing agreement that the IT department has for the provision of Wi-Fi at other public spaces. So yes, it's fully been accounted for and operational.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, through the chair. I've took the bait on the videos with the pedestrian camera or the cameras for the pedestrian bridge, because I feel like this is something that we've chatted about before and tried to contemplate putting them in actually before the bridge was in place so that we could better understand what the requirements were going to be for the number of lifts and be able to better scope our contract. And so I'm just curious, at the time when we previously discussed this, we were told we weren't able to do it, but now I hear that we're actually going to explore the option of adding video cameras in. And so why can't we do that in advance of the bridge being in place in order to inform how much work it's going to be?
Through the chair. Excellent question. We are installing cameras as part of the bridge operation, and those can't be installed until the bridge is essentially finalized for logistical reasons. To your question about why we weren't installing cameras ahead of time, I don't know the history on that, unfortunately, and so I'd have to look through our information to try and get that answered.
Just on this one, I believe that the Transport Canada regulations are such that these early years of operation were to establish the sort of what that operation looks like, and then there's an opportunity to maybe potentially move to run from the cameras. So what we're looking at now isn't remote operation of the bridge. It's just part of the normal operations will include cameras from day one, is what you're telling me.
Correct. Yeah, we are not going to a remote operation at this time.
Okay, so those are two separate issues. Cameras exist either way. Okay, thank you. That might be close to what we were going at. Do you have additional question, Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, a few additional questions on other items. There are a few projects that are listed that are either canceled or listed as complete, but still show a carry forward amount, which seems odd to me. So I'm just wondering if staff can clarify why that might be.
Through the chair, could you specify which projects?
As an example, page 55 of our agenda, the sewer lift station transformers upgrade 96530309. It's canceled, but showing a $55,000 carry forward as one example. There's a few within the lists.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Konchenko. I'm the manager of utilities. Thank you for the question. Through the mayor, I'd have to confirm on that one. That is a project that has been passed from operations to engineering. And the intent is to continue replacing the transformers. We're upgrading an older out-of-date style to the current specifications.
To jog your memory, the description says the money was needed for another emergent project that showed up in 2025 to replace some centrifuges. And so it was reprioritized. But it's showing the remainder, I think, being carried forward, which makes me think that there probably isn't enough to do the whole project.
Through the chair, that has definitely been one of the issues with the Transformers project specifically. There was some capital money repurposed in 2025 to offset an over expenditure we had at the wastewater treatment plant. So same fund for an unexpected centrifuge repair that we had to complete.
So I think just still seeking clarity as to why that amount would be carried forward for a project that is identified as canceled.
That I don't have a concrete answer for. It should have either been not carried forward or carried forward to advance the project in future years. So it might have just been a. Well, okay, the carry forward is being reallocated to fund that overrun I mentioned at the wastewater treatment plant.
So it's still classified as a carry forward, even if it's put into a different project line item?
That's a very astute
It's
question.
the intersection of multiple types of budgets and carry
I see
forward.
Miss
So I think-
Boxrud would like to speak on this.
Yeah, thank you for the question through the chair. So I'll provide clarity on the general methodology and while staff look into the details a little bit more, but generally speaking, if we are utilizing, and this was a unique, and I'll let Mr. Kianaga speak to it or possibly others. This is a unique situation where we had to allocate funds or budget from various projects in order to mitigate an issue. That billing hasn't all come through, so we are carrying forward that variance into this financial plan in order to finish off the billing for that. If a project is canceled, typically we don't have any other expenditures and would not typically be carried forward unless there was a partial point of expenses that have not yet been billed at year end. So it's a bit of a balance and moving things around. Had this happened prior to the 26 to 2035 financial plan, we would have made that adjustment, but it's showing that variance as coming into the financial plan for 2026.
I'm going to try one in the similar category, and then I can come back to you. Thank you for this. The various reports and appendixes just cover such a wide range of things. My question is both on the specific piece, but also to help me understand these statuses. So there's one here that's titled as stormwater pipe capacity upsizing. I can give the number as well. It's 60514117. And it shows that it's listed as canceled. The description has it it's a $100,000 project in 2025 for design has been canceled and moved to 2027. And with the rest of an explanation, to me, this is a delay versus a cancel? Like, how does this square? It's still work that's going to happen. It's just not happening. It's still happening inside our 10-year financial. So with this particular one, why is it showing as canceled? I'm more interested in the sort of that high level concept of than the specific project and timing of that delivery. I thought it might be a question for you, Ms. Boxer.
Yes, thank you. Just a reminder to council and for the public that's listening, the carry forwards are specifically around 2026. So we are really trying to move away from anything that impacts the future years in the financial plan. So in this instance, it's canceled for now, goes back to reserve, will become part of the 27 to 2036, got to do that math quickly, financial planning process. So this is why it's considered canceled at this point. It's just a show.
So if it's not going to happen in 2026, it's showing as canceled, even though we could say it's delayed until 2027 or beyond. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I understand this is why I'm asking the question.
That's correct. And I think consistency is something we're still working towards. So that is the intention. There have been a few slip through that may be called delayed, but should be really called canceled at that point.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Hamilton. I'll come back around to you, Councillor Stoner.
Councillor Stoner, did you have any more on this? No. Okay. On a different topic, the lawn bowling at Eaglewind, I noted that it said was prepared, coming along. Do we have a date for the installation there?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. We have a tentative date sometime in June lined up. We have a PO issued and a contractor still on board to do the work. We just missed our weather window in the fall. And so we're lined up for June at this point.
Thanks very much. I'll keep my eyes peeled for June. Two questions, or actually one question on paid parking. I saw there were two different projects on paid parking. One called Paid Parking Implementation, which was project, I think it was in Special Projects 503-00128. And then there was a downtown paid parking, which was 565-04324. I believe that was in the capital. What's the difference between these two projects? The total spend there is $47,000.
Through the chair, my name is Brian McMurtry. I'm the manager of transportation. The two different projects were, the special operating project was the study that was, there was some carry forward from 2024 into 2025 to close out that study. And then the capital project was what ended up being the pilot project. So there were some minor improvements that were done for the paid parking pilot project at Darrell Bay that were carried out through the capital project.
And this is representing the expenditure, not any revenue we may have received through that project, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thanks. And while you're here, Mr. McMurtry, another one. Active transportation upgrades, project 565-10301 was about $1 million under budget. I'll give you a second to find it there. But only $130,000 in carryover requested. So either what fell off our active transportation planning, or where's the gap there?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, this is a bit of an issue of a carry forward from 2024 that was maybe not done as it should have been. So there were funds in the 2024 budget for some of the capital projects on Depot and Victoria that ended up being their own line items. And funding for that was erroneously carried forward into the 2025 budget. So there's a smaller amount that is being carried forward to cover tree planting from the Tantalus Road multi-use path project, where there were a number of trees that were removed, but the budget that is not being carried forward is, back in the reserve, and those projects are being funded through their reserves and their specific line items in the budget.
Okay, sounds like just an accounting quirk. Fine. All the projects are still, Depot Road is, active transportation is still on track to progress. Yeah.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thanks very much. And if I may, another question. Yeah. This is a more general question. I think if I look at the projects, many of them fall under Mr. Morwood. The annual repairs to paving, water systems, sewer systems, they all reflect project complete generally. Are all of the planned projects actually completed within the year and on time, on budget, or are there any changes of scope? Because with annual repairs, the piece I don't have line of sight on is whether there were any scope changes to our annual water main repairs or sewer repairs, that sort of thing. So the question is, are there scope level changes in our annual repairs, or are they really just, we really did just deliver everything under budget?
Jesse Morwin, manager of capital projects. Through the chair, thank you for the question. Specifically to water, I believe that we were within, our scope did not change. There might be very slight variations, but effectively the scope didn't change. My recollection from annual water was that we had a decent contingency. Bids, it was a competitive bid process, and they came on bid, and we just had a little bit of extra money. Each year for all the annuals, including water, generally we're projecting water budgets in advance, so a few years in advance, 10 years in fact. And so we're always trying every year to organize the projects to spend approximately that much. So maybe there's different projects that we can do, and we'll say, okay, these 4 projects will about equal that amount. So it's a level of spending, a consistent level of spending over a number of years. So sometimes maybe we'll have a $300,000 or $400,000 extra contingency. It goes back into the reserves, and then we can either, you know, increase or decrease future budget spends. If that makes sense.
That it makes sense. That sort of that level of planning year to year makes good sense. Maybe the piece that I'm looking for more information on or looking for more reassurance on is that we are making the progress that we are expecting to make within that overall 10-year plan. Are we keeping up with the infrastructure deterioration and replacement requirements? And how do we see that how does council see that?
Through the chair, certainly. So the basis for a progress is based on the master plans generally. The water master plan was completed, I believe, last year, and so we've built and our funding rates changed accordingly. So it's a bit of a progressive spend. So we're say a year or 2 behind the master plan because we didn't increase the budget right away because there were significant escalations in projected costs. The sewer master plan or the sanitary master plan is being worked on right now. And so we're behind the past sanitary master plan. However, it will be updated. There's going to be a presentation later this year, and then we'll develop the budget and program according to what the new master plan is. So it's a complicated question, but I think what I'm trying to say is that we're on track right now for the water master plan because it's a new budget and it's a new plan. For the sanitary, we're behind the old the master plan. As far as optics or as far as transparency in the projects, we generally don't report back on an annual or regular basis. So yeah, so we generally don't. We certainly can if that's what council asks.
Yeah, I think there was a motion to that effect in the Capital Works conversation. I'll have to go back and look at what it was. Okay, thanks. And the sanitary master plan, do you remember what
Hold on,
year?
just a second. I see someone else joined us at the table, so I just want to make sure that we get the input at the right time. So would you like to add?
Through the chair, David Rolston, Senior Manager of Infrastructure Planning. I would just add to Mr. Morwood's comments that the district has a policy that we update our master plans every 5 years. And so that would take into account progress that we made over that 5 years, and it would determine additional needs that we have, water mains, for instance, or sewer or paving that we haven't completed, updated cost estimates. So it takes all of this into account, and then it would come up with new annual expenditure recommendations. So that's sort of the way that we can look at how are our expenditures keeping track with the objectives of our master plans.
Okay, thanks. Let me go back one step to finish up my last question. When was the past sanitary master plan? Do you remember what year that was?
Through the chair, I believe it was 2018.
2018. Okay. And I think, Mr. Rolston, I'm not sure if there's the piece I'm trying to get at is not sort of every 5 years, are we making a new plan and budgeting accordingly? Because I've seen us do that through our master plans, the water master plan. The question is, when we set that master plan, what is council's visibility on how we're making progress on the actual infrastructure through that 5 years? We can see the spend, but I don't, where do we see the actual progress on the infrastructure is my question.
Just if I could on this, I think that just a reminder of the sort of the decision we're being asked today. I understand where this fit the piece here. A piece that I haven't heard here that I expect is part of the answer is that annual utility, like as we set utility rates, are we making that progress? To me, that's the council and the natural council touch point. For this piece, we don't necessarily have a dashboard for making appropriate progress, but when we're contemplating what those utility budgets are, these master plans feed into that. Is that sort of would staff share that assessment? Like that's the natural council touch point for progress on these master plans?
Through the chair, that's correct. Our annual rates take into account master plans and projects and capital projects that have been taken from master plans and put into our financial plan. So they are reflected there. And in terms of progress, I think that's a level of granularity that hasn't previously been communicated to council. At the staff level, we have our lists of annual projects, water main, sewers, paving, that are recommended in master plans and that we keep track of, but that hasn't, that level of granularity hasn't historically been communicated to council.
I hope that helps at least a portion of. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I see there's a balance here. The long list of projects that need to be completed every year is maybe more detailed than we need, but I'd like some sense. I don't have any sense of how much progress we're making through our infrastructure deficit. It's well acknowledged we have an infrastructure deficit, and I don't have a good sense for how much progress we're making. Perhaps a place for that to fit is when we do a new master plan every 5 years, to look back at the old master plan and see how much of it did we get done. Do we do that? Or is that not part of our master plan?
Go ahead, Ms. Boxford.
Thank you for the question through the chair. What I might propose is that staff take this away. We've got the information and what council's desire is, but to take away and find an appropriate way of updating council as necessary.
Yep, go ahead. And then,
just wrap up. So from my perspective, what I see here, the variance reporting, the important things here are how much was spent and how much was finished. And for a lot of projects, we see that quite clearly. But in the annual maintenance things is somewhere that I don't see where we see it. So that's what I'm looking for in the variances. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. So council, we do have the recommendations here. That's where we're going towards. If anyone has any additional questions that will inform those, this would be the time. Otherwise, we're moving into the phase where we're contemplating motion. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to seek some clarity on the Brennan Park pieces as well. There's a description for the Brennan Park building envelopes upgrade, which is kind of phase 2, and it speaks to the request for proposal and validation of work will be part of the Recreation Center Task Force scope of work, but I didn't recognize that phase 2 construction was going to overlap with the new phase of work. So can staff just clarify for me how that's getting incorporated with the contract or the RFP that's gone out?
Thank you for the question through the chair. Tim McBride, project manager for facilities. The ISIT project will run concurrently with the CTF project. In order for us to progress the ISIT project, we do need some input from the consultant once they're onboarded onto how we would upgrade that envelope and the necessary locations for the addition of future facilities.
Okay, so it's more just like an information flow more so than integrating the projects directly. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, and then one of the other motions that came from council when this was put into the budget, the Brennan Park Task Force, was consideration of adding a committee of some sort. And so I'm just curious how that gets integrated into the early phase of this project.
Thank you for the question through the chair. Our intention is to work with the consultant on the best way to approach that.
Very good for now, Councillor Stoner. Thank you. Councillor Pettingill, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks. Just looking at the resolution before us, I just want to check on the surplus. I don't know if that's the right word, but in terms of the dike raising and asking if we can apply it to an extra piece of the dike which needs the work. Are we clear from the work we've done that this sort of what might be characterized as close to a Class A estimate in terms of what we have left and what it's going to cost? Or I guess I'm, just a little bit concerned that we think we can do it. We want to try and do it, but when we get into it, it turns out it's double this. Like, how certain are we that this amount of leftover will actually complete that extra 300 meters?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. There is some uncertainty on that cost estimate. We're at like a Class D preliminary cost estimate stage at this point. We would need to get approval from the funders, go through the design consultant phase, bring them on board, further define the scope, understand the permitting implications of that, and then look to go to construction. And through that process, we would get more certainty on the costs. But at this stage, we are at a very preliminary level of cost estimate.
Okay, can I just follow up then? If we didn't have this leftover funds, would we sort of be pursuing much of this anyways? It's just now we have this, maybe a bit of extra resources to do it, or would we have sort of a totally different priority in terms of projects?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. Yes, we would still be pursuing this. The priority may be higher now that we have this opportunity to bring in the external funding, but it's still one of the highest priorities within our diking infrastructure program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Council, we have some recommendations before us. Is anyone ready to, I think we're ready for motions. Councillor Hamilton?
I'll move the staff recommendation that we authorize the staff carry forward remaining budget of 3.4 million for the dike upraising. Read part 2 first. Both together.
Can we do them together? They're listed separately. I just want to make sure. Go ahead.
The first 2 should be fine to do together. The bylaw should be done standalone.
Okay, so your motion's the first 2?
To move the first 2, the carry forward, receive the key projects update, financial plan amendment, and carry forward of 3.4 million for the river dike raising, Squamish River Dike.
Thank you. Seconder for the motion, Councillor French. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you to staff for doing all the work to keep us informed of the variances as we go through each year. It's extraordinarily important. I find it extraordinarily valuable to see how we've done in projects after allocate this much and how much does it actually cost. I recognize that there's a huge volume of projects, but I would like even more detail to have a clearer understanding of how we operate and how well we deliver on our projects. Anyways, so absolutely accept the report. And regarding the Squamish River dike raising, it appears like a good opportunity to seek external funding for a project that does need to be done anyways.
Thank you very much. Councillor French?
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I'll just speak briefly to the Upper Jimmy projects. Fully support that. And I love that we're working with the Squamish Nation to potentially make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be supporting the motion on the floor. Appreciate each of the quarterly variance reports, but obviously the year-end one is always the most interesting. I think that I reflect back on our our previous term where quarterly variance reporting wasn't a thing that we did at the district. And this has been a really substantive increase in transparency for council and our community in the way that we do our budgeting. And I think there's always questions that lead to further refinement as we do it year over year. And we better understand the flow of the work from annual projects to multi-year projects, and our refinement of class estimates for especially capital projects. So thanks to staff for continuing to walk us through that, and happy to support the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, happy to support the motion. I think moving forward, if the funder will agree with the extra dike work, makes a lot of sense. I know it is a fairly high priority in the integrated flood hazard management plan. It is interesting. We've been sort of had a couple discussions now today already about how we move from a class D to where we are today in terms of increases or decreases in budgets. And here's a case where we had a significant came in well under budget. We're proposing a scope increase to deal with that. Other times we worry about a scope decrease, and are we capturing that as a, so I still haven't wrapped my head around. I'm not sure in all cases it's more detail we need, but I'm not sure we've also nailed exactly what things are we tracking to make sure we are sort of staying on track. And so I think that's just what the discussion I see us having and us trying to work our way through. But anyways, I think the reports and the discussions we're having are getting us, I think, a better understanding, and hopefully we can keep doing this work and find some efficiencies along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in support of the motion, first of all, to the carry forward projects and the variance report, I think I find these tremendously valuable, and they get more and more valuable as we go through each year, but also year on year, they're getting better and more detail. And so I really appreciate that. The questions that asked by myself and council today were, I think we had some great responses. And I know it takes this many minds and your whole, on behalf of your whole team as well, to have those answers. And I really appreciate that in this seat. And I think as Councillor Pettingill spoke to this, the second piece of this motion is the piece around Upper Jimmy Slough project. And I think that a lot of time in this room, we do spend time, and I think rightly so, really feeling the impacts of cost escalation and what that means for projects and better forecast, all those things. And we don't often get a bounce this way. And I think it's important that we stop and celebrate that. I'm really happy that this is something we can even contemplate, and we can go back to the funder to seek approval for this scope increase. And so I'm really thankful that we're there, and also that the opportunity was recognized, not just, oh, we got that done under budget, let's take that as a victory and move on. Like, what more can we do with what we have? And I think that's great, and I'm happy to see it here. I'm happy to support it. I hope that we're successful in realizing that. With that, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So now the next piece is the first, second, and third reading question in advance of that.
Yeah, thank you. And this might be a question for when we actually set tax rates, but in the operational revenues and expenditure variance analysis, Appendix 3, we have the other property levies as operating revenue. I'm just curious how we account for those when we're setting tax rates. Like, does it just go into general operating revenue? Does it decrease the overall taxation rate? Like, how does it get accounted for?
Thank you for the question through the chair. It is not contemplated as part of the property tax. It's a separate revenue source. So total two different areas. Yeah, all under the general fund though.
Okay. Councillor Stoner, would you like to move readings? Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you. Jake, any comments on this? This is really actioning the pieces we just spoke about. So I'll just say thank you so much to everyone for all the work on this. I'm happy to see this piece of the puzzle move forward. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Pettingill, I think I'm seeing a delay. That was in favor for vote from, okay. Motion carried unanimously. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Councillor Hamilton?
Motion to terminate this meeting.
I'm looking for a seconder to the motion. I will second the motion. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll see you back at 6 o'clock for our regular meeting.